Welcome, everybody. We're back for another episode of Hope, Power, and Healthcare. We know that you, as an innovator in healthcare, either operating within a system or building a business, building innovations on your own, we know that these are some of the most insurmountable, difficult challenges, gigantic impact on people's lives, well-being, and outcomes. This is what much more important and bigger picture than revenue, and we know that it can feel it can feel like a major challenge even when we reach a breakthrough, even when we're doing something right. It can still feel extremely difficult getting this stuff into the flow, into care journeys, into the market. So Melissa and I thought it would be a good idea to just every week sit down with you and bring a little bit of hope and power back to that journey. Let you know other people are in there with you. Melissa, anything you want to start off with?
Yeah, it's been such an interesting week, both personally and professionally. And Chris, you can see this gorgeous view behind me. Just have the absolute pleasure of being in one of my favorite conferences, the conference board, with one of my favorite innovators, Nicolea, over at the Gumi Group, and it's just such a energy. I think getting to reconnect with uh, heads of benefits, HR, employer sales leaders, chief commercial officers, startups, and I think the consistent vibe is they have hope a little bit, right? I mean, we know mental health in the workplace is more challenging than ever. Workplace benefits in an era of uncertainty and cost pressure. It's an interesting dynamic right now. But the people that I'm collaborating with out at the conference, they're hopeful. They're, watching what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited to share a little bit with our fam around, what we're hearing.
Well, could you share with the fam just like the conference board? You're the one who told me about that. I didn't know about it until last year. Then I start hearing the name more and more and hearing about its influence in how policies are made and how decisions are made across the country. So for the people out there looking at where to position themselves and go out into the market, can you talk about the conference board and how to show up there the right way?
Yeah, I always think there's like this little pendulum in terms of like how and where you sell into, and usually the guidance for startups is like choose your lane, if you will. So you either sell into payers or you sell into employers. There's probably few salespeople that really cross the chasm and sell kind of to both. And so the conference board is a more employer sales focused conference. I had the pleasure of speaking at it. I think it was 2 years ago when I was at Cigna. I filled in for my dear friend Jill Vaslow, and we just had like a wonderful talk with some fantastic benefits leaders. One of whom was the benefit leader for Corn Ferry, and they were talking about all of their challenges in designing an innovative employee wellness package. And so I find that the conference board, it's for those that want to sell into employers. It's definitely like the conference for health benefits and employers, and you see a lot of the innovative startups there, but typically you do see some of the payers there as well who offer some of the benefits.
So for people out there building that are just kind of exploring that space and needing to see where a lot of the pain is, because we know there's a lot of pain with the expense that employers, the burden that they're paying. It sounds like a great way for getting a real perspective and being a part of some important conversations.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think the question everyone continues to ask, I'd love to hear the reaction to others, is with the economic pressures in the world, are we going to see less emphasis on spending as it relates to employee health and wellness? And I think I would strongly argue, if I get to take a position, which I think we get to on this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
it's
100.
that it's very much that um, investing in your employee health has incredible ROI. And startups and founders and those playing in the space, vendors, have to continue to create a compelling ROI argument, because it is a bucket of funding that could be reduced when there are cost pressures to an organization. And so that actuarial argument, you hear me talk about that a lot, becomes more important than ever to be able to show that the spend here creates such uplift in terms of employee productivity, employee mental health, the lack of absenteeism, right, that you see when you are in good spirits and you can show up for yourself and your colleagues and your employees. And I think really one of the most interesting conversations that I've had so far this week was really around, I think people often forget that their employees are their most important capital. It's the human capital. It seems so simple, but it's, employees want to be seen, heard, and listened to. And I just think, it's important to think about that.
Yeah, employees, it shouldn't even be an alien concept that employees are people. They're not bodies. They're not manpower. They're not resources. They are literal people. And I like going back and re-emphasizing that. But you brought up a very sensitive point to me. And I'm going to put you on the spot with this question because I was at this conference, HMPS, which is more in the healthcare strategy and healthcare marketing aspect of hospital systems. But we were all talking about ROI and measurement and things like that, and building defensible cases. I love where you're coming from with your background with Cigna, Evernorth, et cetera. Can you tell us some do's and don'ts when it comes to being an innovator, talking about your ROI use cases?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting the number of pitch decks that come across my desk that don't show math in it or numbers or an ROI. I know I saw your eyes widen a little bit, Chris.
Sorry, everybody. I'm not judging you.
Well, I think a lot of times, and I can be guilty of it myself, when you're really into your product, you kind of get obsessed with it a little bit, and you might even forget that sometimes you have to turn around and then sell your product back to others. And so in order to sell that product back to others, it's really important to understand, well, what is the product? What value does it provide? And I think that value that it provides has to be for the specific audience. So we talked before about conference board being an employer conference, right? So the value for the employer that you're selling your product to is often different than the value to the payer that may also contribute to the funding for your product or maybe even pay your claims. And so it's very important to make sure that you tailor your value specific to your audience. Your investor deck should not be the same as your employer deck, should not be the same as your payer deck. And then going back to the actuarial argument, you have to deeply understand the cost implications of bringing your product into the world. Does your product actually save that employer money? Maybe it reduces the administrative burden on their staff. Well, that in my mind is operational expense, OPEX, right? The other big lever you could start to pull is the claims expense, the benefit expense, BenX, right? Oftentimes people need validated case studies, peer-reviewed articles that are the evidence base to that argument. And I don't know that everyone knows how to craft that, but we could certainly bring folks on to talk more about that.
So that's building a powerful way to look at it. I think that a lot of people get caught up in very vague definitions of ROI, and it just becomes it becomes a soup of various claims that people are making, but bringing it into some specific categories and buckets, I think that's just really helpful to get people to think very specifically about this is the type of ROI and how does it matter to who I'm presenting to.
Yeah, and you can do some exercises walk your customer journey to say, what good does it bring to that person that steps with me on the journey? Such a good example of that might be, I could use my example maybe of the Gumi group that I talked about. I'm out here with Mika. One of the cool parts about the Gumi group is that I don't think people understand how hard it is for the HR leaders to actually facilitate amazing events that engage employees and employee wellness. You might have two people on the HR team that are actually trying to do things like, cooking demonstrations or on-site fitness classes to build that team or that fam inside the employee. And so, Mika spent a lot of time trying to understand like what classes, what technologies, how do HR benefit buyers think about bringing employee engagement forward. And then, created case studies that show that savings. And, I'm cheering for her as she does that. I know so many people really try to understand their customer journey. And I just think that's so important for the innovators to always remember, like, put that customer in the middle. That human-centered design is just so important.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for sharing with us a little bit of what's going on at the conference board and some of that insider knowledge. You saw my eyes widen because the way people talk about ROI is definitely a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. You've been out at conferences too. Do you want to share a little bit about what you've been up to?
Yeah. So I was at HMPS, which is a summit for healthcare strategists and marketers within the provider space. That I spent a lot of years in that space in the analytics domain, helping to identify what service lines, be it cardio, ortho, etc., what service lines it made sense for a hospital to communicate about to their population using data science, analytics, machine learning, etc., all the buzzwords. So out this past week, goodness, it was such a good connection. Seeing a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I helped lead a workshop with some absolutely great people that are actually doing and moving in the AI space within this healthcare marketing domain. So there was Chris Boyer, who has worked for I think various hospitals under the Harvard umbrella, and then went and started his own consultancy. Matt Sear, who also worked within the hospital domain and started a consultancy to help organizations, I guess, achieve benefits from their AI components. But one thing that was really powerful was being with Jeremy Rogers, who is a senior leader at IU Health, and was talking and sharing about how they're using this in their using these tools in their content development workflow. My part of it, like everybody's talking about Gen AI, it's getting all the spotlight. But the types of metrics that I like to focus on for commercial growth strategy, patient engagement, it's generative AI doesn't really do well when it comes to developing predictive models and identifying patient engagement and churn risk and stuff like that. So I wanted to like they were talking about the Gen AI element, and I've been doing this since 2018, and I just wanted to give props to the old school methods, the explainable approaches. Again, you talk about ROI use cases. You're not going to get a proper ROI analysis by simply asking a chatbot. So these are the types of things that I was having fun highlighting.
Oh, tell me more about that, because I definitely heard this amazing piece of advice. I think it was the chief medical officer of Exo Health that was saying this to me. And she goes, I never, ever do a first draft now without, and maybe it wasn't as absolute as I'm making it sound, without putting it into ChatGPT. So I have definitely put in, and maybe our fam can, try this and see what they get, or you can debate me on this, Chris. I'd be fine with that. Should you ask your ChatGPT to start your actuarial argument for you and help me understand my value proposition?
You know what? Start, or somewhere in the process, it's gonna make sense at some point. It might not be the final part of your approach, but if you need, because let me talk to you. I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of underground on what programmers and developers and these very, very smart people who know all these technical details. What a lot of what was going on before 2022 was, I am stumped on this algorithm. I'm stumped on this approach. let me go to this website called Stack Overflow, which is basically a big message board for people talking about their problems in tech, and other people might have worked on something similar. So they're posting their code, other people are sharing approaches, and quiet part out loud, a lot of it is like, oh, this works, and they'll copy that solution and paste it in and integrate it with their own code base and body of work. So that's the older way. The newer way is like we still, nobody had like my, you see my head, there's no gigantic brain that's storing every bit of knowledge and detail about these algorithms and approaches. So, you're an expert. You've been in the trenches. You know what smells good and bad when you're looking at a response. So if you're asking an LLM such as Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, LLM of choice, if you're bringing the expertise and baseline understanding to the table about how the math works and what's going on, then yeah, work on use that to help validate some of your assumptions. You've gone down this path, and you want to make sure that and you want to search other sources, or you want to have it interpret other things that you're reading about the problem. It's 100%. Even if it's not the end all be all of your flow, bring it in there, use it wisely, but bring your expertise there. Test the outputs and things like that. Ask it things that you already know, just to validate that. If it's able to tell me what I already know, maybe I can have a little bit more trust. But yeah, I actually strongly agree with having it integrated into your flow.
Yeah, I love your tips, Chris, because just on this personal note, I've been really struggling with redesigning some rooms. Right, I was telling everyone the story, right, and so I'm innovating in all spaces, even in my house, and so I was using my ChatGPT to try to make it paint things, right? And I found that as I got more sophisticated with how I put my prompts in, my output got better, right? So, a little example of this, and we can totally cut this if, it's not irrelevant, but I would literally be like, I would like you to apply Revere pewter on the top part of the wall above the molding, but make sure that the window trim is white. And I got there to a more sophisticated prompt, because the first prompt I put in, which was paint these walls Revere pewter, I ended up with a giant, gray box of Revere pewter. So, garbage in, garbage out still holds in the era of ChatGPT.
You know what? That's great advice. Absolutely no possibility of cutting that, because I think that people are gatekeeping themselves. As a reference to our first episode, it was called "Don't Gatekeep Yourself." But people are gatekeeping themselves from these tools because. And I'll give a story. We led a little workshop where we asked these healthcare marketers to come up with a problem statement that they're facing in their strategy, and work with an LLM, work with the ChatGPT to figure out, dig deeper on it and see if it gives some reasonable solutions. Well, what happened? When we got the group started, there were a lot of people that weren't comfortable with it, and they sat there and they deliberated about what to even say to the prompt for 4 minutes.
Chris, but you know what the coolest thing about all of that is? That what I learned is you can actually ask the ChatGPT to write the prompt for you. So help me write a better prompt to design my room as a way to get started.
100%. Yeah. So we asked this group to address a problem using the LLM, and it took a full 4 minutes before some people were comfortable to jump into it. Went out. So yeah, exactly like you said. Rather than gatekeeping yourself, get in. Ask it something silly. Just there's nobody on the other side that's listening judging you. Yeah, nobody's judging you. Try some things. You've got years of expertise and life experience you're bringing to the table. You're smarter than that thing. Don't be afraid to put in the question.
Yeah, maybe we should title this, "Is your ChatGPT judging you?" And the answer would be no.
The other part of the conference, Melissa, you had me watch Handmaid's Tale. I'm 5 episodes deep.
Oh, are you sucked into the vortex? It's amazing.
Yeah, we're in. Me and my partner. We're I can't wait to little bit later today, we're going to get back into it. But guess what? Guess what, fam? Oh my gosh.
Say more, Chris.
It's hard. We're in it. We're in it. We're 100%. Like, you know, it's not like the people at the like on the corners with guns and things like that watching, but like this was a healthcare communications conference that I'm at, and people are looking at how to police their own language when it comes to talking about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. Yes, yes. So when it comes to what you see on the websites at major institutions and what you're hearing from your healthcare providers, they are being extremely careful not to use words like inclusivity. There's a list they were talking about that's been circulating around about the words that they shouldn't use to fall on the bad list.
The bad list. Tell me more about
the
bad list.
The bad list is what happens when the powers that be are upset with whatever's being communicated about, and there's potential cuts to funding or legal battles and things like that ensue. So an example that shout out to Dean Browell of Feedback, by the way. He shared an example of how some of these things are being carried out. Is a Catholic ministry was dinged because it used the word deity. Because how do you spell deity? It starts with
DEI.
Exactly. So there is a blunt force. There is a club that is being used. And I think it's the absolute most ridiculous thing in the world for like these institutions to have to police that language to that degree. And it just got me thinking about while watching The Handmaid's Tale, you see the way that they kind of speak in mysteries, where they say, you know, that those approved guidelines because they feel that someone is always listening. And I know that when last week it was the reason that you brought it up was about cuts to women's health and things like that. But I'm just starting to see so many different dimensions here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to say, Chris, are you leading a Mayday effort to, create some safe words? And for those that don't watch the show, like Mayday is the name of the underground resistance or effort that the protagonist of the show joins ultimately. Oh, Chris, I might be spoiling it for you. Maybe we'll have to save this for another episode. But I really hope we're not having to have a resistance of people that are banding together, you know, to make sure that inclusivity and community still happens in healthcare.
That's what it felt like. It felt like, hey, what are the words that we should be using? And I came into the week with the opinion that, okay, well, we want to protect the work that we're doing. We want to protect like doing the right things, and the mission remains the same. But at the same time, when it comes to policing language to comply with this, we're adding a bureaucratic layer to our communications and slowing down the language of proper care delivery. So it's impacting more than just like we can shuffle around some language and everything like that, but it hit me hard to see how it was slowing down the process.
Yeah, I mean, that worries me. And yet I still, look for that shred of hope in the fact that this community, which is such an important word, right? This idea that you have this community of collaborators that are banding together to basically say, like, how do we keep our funding and each other safe? Because it's really good work that you're doing.
Let me find this book. Hold on. Do I have this book right here? Oh. This is the book. They handed this book to everybody at the conference. It's called Suited for Leadership. It's by the Virtua Healthcare CEO, Dennis Pullen.
Okay.
And
have you met Dennis? Can we bring him on the show?
You know what? I'll hard about. I was talking to his chief marketing officer, Chrissy Scott. I actually kind of helped arrange him getting a session there. We've spoken before. Yeah, let's bring Dennis in because he is a healthcare CEO in New Jersey, and he's leading with that with bold language. He's serving as an example of what it means to still uphold values for pushing health equity forward. They're making investments in housing and social determinants of health. So yeah, that's the hope, is that we might have to police our language sometimes to police to protect the work. I don't, because I'm not representing a massive institution, so I can say what I want. But for the others and everything like that, I just want to put people out there like Dennis, like the people that are working for these institutions and have a lot more to protect than I do, but still out there using bold language. So strong hope there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, we're going to stay tuned to your reactions to The Handmaid's Tale and to the U.S. economy.
Yes. But let's get in some more hope as well. So we're hyping up the Conference Board and HMPS, but I'm in Detroit. This basement that you see in the background, if you're watching, this is in Detroit, which is actually, you wouldn't know it. I didn't know it before I moved here, but MedHealth is on the map here. Detroit is putting MedHealth on the map. We had a MedHealth summit a couple of weeks ago, where we brought together the leaders and innovators in biotech and health tech in the Detroit area at Wayne State's Tech Town, Detroit. And they just hosted this thing where we could all get together and communicate about the innovations that we're going through. You'll see a lot of those interviews I was on the floor conducting interviews. You'll see a lot of them, but Melissa and I are going to watch this one from a leader named Crystal Brown. Crystal Brown is the CEO and founder of an AI drug discovery company called CircNova. And she shares such a powerful story. She shares themes on what it's like to build a startup, throw your whole life into it and fail. She talks about the grieving process there. She talks, and I think that the acknowledging and living through that grief, that grief gives you a superpower as an innovator, understanding how to take care of that rest and take care of yourself. We'll talk about even the realities of AI's role in drug discovery. We'll talk about the go-to-market process. And with Crystal, she got real about the experience of being a Black woman founder in this high-tech industry, dealing with a venture capital system and network that has not historically funded people that look like her. And in addition to that, we'll talk about her leadership expertise, harmonizing, like she says that she comes from a non-technical background and is working with people with deep technical backgrounds. Like it's I'm overselling it, but like, I don't know. Can you see I'm a little bit excited for us to play this thing, Melissa? What do you think?
I'm so excited, and I feel like these are my favorite moments, like actually hearing the stories, let's just call them the war stories on some level, of our innovators that are out there, because you can learn so much from what they've done, or even more so what they didn't do. And I just had this incredible moment at the conference board, very similar. We had an opportunity to talk to the CEO of Groker, and it was like a master class, Chris, and I feel like the master class is about to begin for our fam.
The 100% a master class. All right, so I'm going to shout out to our editor, Alyssa. Go ahead and let's roll that tape.
I am incredibly excited about this podcast, so I will be tuning in.
Okay.
I love it. Health, power, and
Healthcare. Hope,
power, and healthcare. I love that. That's
you
so
do?
Good. Yes,
See,
I do.
I'm over here like,
because you know why? Because I think people can make hope sound like a bad thing, but that's really what you're starting from, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you think about, from my standpoint, precision medicine and treatment of diseases that have had no hope, mm-hmm. that we've been able to treat. And I say that's something I say all the time. We are now looking to treat diseases that we've had no hope of treating in the past. So it starts with the hope and then following through on that. So great name. Love it.
And you know about hope? Here's mm-hmm. the thing I think about hope. I think that it's a responsibility, not mm-hmm. if you just blindly optimistic, mm-hmm. that's irresponsible. That's not the kind of hope that mm-hmm. we're looking for. But you bring up complex diseases. Mm-hmm. You bring up situations where people think that they're alone and nothing can be solved. But the hope can come from knowledge.
Absolutely. It's the springboard for every other piece of it. The hope leads you to faith. Faith leads you to action. Action leads you to results. Results leads you to success. So you just have to go one by one up those stairs.
That's absolutely gorgeous. And that's why I asked him to roll all the cameras, because
There you go.
That could have been a moment that we didn't catch.
I didn't even just look, you make it easy, just roll it off the tongue, I suppose. But I really do feel like that. So, you know. Mm-hmm.
So, Crystal, can you talk to me about CircNova? Like this, I consider myself pretty smart, but there's some research and background in this I don't even feel qualified to discuss. So, can you talk about CircNova and your role and thoughts in starting that company?
Sure. So, starting CircNova, I believe certain things are serendipitous or purposed in your life, right? I was not looking to start CircNova. I actually was coming off the heels of my first startup that failed miserably. So my first startup was Great Lakes Biologics. We were doing IVT enzyme production for mRNA vaccines. So trying to develop these enzymes, like 2.0 versions of them, and get them out to market. I made a lot of first founder mistakes. I had raised a little bit of money, and then I opened my lab too quick. I hired people too quickly, and so I ran out of money a lot quicker than I should have, because learning and trust and trials. And so I shut that company down in March of 23. And I went through a grieving process, which I think a lot of people don't like to acknowledge. But when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and then you have to say, this failed, and you acknowledge that failure, there is a grief that comes along with, I put everything into it, and I didn't get the results that I wanted. And so I was not sure what I was going to do next, if I was going to go back corporate or what the plan was. And my chief scientific officer, Joe D'Angelo, started sending me every day articles on circular RNA. And circular RNA is derives from RNA, which we previously thought was kind of junk in the cells and not useful, and really started sending me different literature, research papers on how this is correlated to diseases that we can target and treat, like ovarian cancer and breast cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. And so I said, okay, and I was interested, and I said, but we need a platform, because we're in the age of tech and AI. So how do we not develop a product, but how do we develop a platform? And so together we decided, okay, well, we could do AI-driven drug discovery for circular RNA. And so that was the idea. Immediately I said, Joe, this is so big and I'm exhausted and I just failed. No. And he persistently, every day for 3 weeks, sent me at least 5 to 10 articles and companies who were doing and things we could do similarly. And so finally I said, fine, we'll try. I'm going to throw something up against the wall, but who knows? And so it started with a $15,000
Wait a minute,
grant.
hold up. 3 weeks, and then what happened? What was the trigger?
3 weeks. The trigger was I went to a retreat for founders, and I had been accepted into this retreat on the previous company that had failed and shut down. So I had actually called the people over and said, I'm not going to be able to attend. I no longer have a company. And it was actually Michigan Founders Fund. So I want to plug Michigan Founders Fund.
Hello.
They said, come anyway. And I was like, oh, okay, but I'll be the only founder there with no company. How am I going to be a founder with no company? And they said, a founder is a founder, so come. And so I came. And it was Pete Martin and Trista Van Tyne who we talked, and they said, just start the new company. And I said, but I'm tired. I did that for 2 years, and what if the same thing happens? And they said, you never know, just try. And so I left that retreat very inspired and very motivated. And I just said, what's the worst that can happen? I failed again. And I called Joe and I said, okay, we're doing it. I started the LLC. So I started as an LLC. I literally did all the paperwork in a day. And I said, let's just see what we can get. And so I went over to Techtown and said, I need some money. And they said, I'll give you $15K. What can you do with it? And I said, okay. And I started thinking, what can I do with it? And so Joe and I put our heads together. And he said, well, with $15K, we can do one thing. It's a one-time shot. We can pay this outsourcer basically to take what I've designed and see if it'll help us develop the process. And it did. So that $15K got me to another grant for, I think it was $20K. And then that $20K, we did another process. And what really changed the trajectory was there was an AI pitch competition during Michigan Tech Week.
When was this?
This was October of 23. So I founded the company May of 2023. So I shut down the first company in March. By May, I had started the new one. And so September or October comes around, and it's Michigan Tech Week, and there's an AI pitch competition, and no biotech companies were in it. So it was 106 applicants, and I was the only science company. And I remember talking to the people who were over it, and they said, well, but are you an AI company? And I said, this is what I need people to understand about CircNova. We're as much AI as we are bio. So yes, I'm an AI company. So I did that competition, and I won the top prize of $50,000. And that was enough to get people's attention. Mm-hmm. And so between, I just kept putting different little things out there. And
can you tell me real quick, what set y'all apart?
Ooh. I think it was a couple different things, right? One thing that sets us apart is we are on the forefront right now of precision medicine.
In the competition, because there's all these AI.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, one, just being a biotech company, I think it was the boldness of me saying, I understand that this is an AI company and everybody thinks it's SaaS and everything is all about platform. Mm-hmm. But science is very tech driven, and I think that set us alone, because out of 106 applicants, I'm the only one who had a science company. So I think that did it. And then again, with the technology, I think the way that I was able to present that no one has really around here taken AI to design new molecules, and those molecules are then developed into treatments, therapeutic treatment. And so I think getting them to see the value in how AI really fuels science is what really set us apart. And then the other thing is, and I'm very passionate about this as a founder, you really got to know yourself. I sell myself. You're not just getting this company, you're getting me, and I'm a hell of a business leader. Mm-hmm. I'm a hell of a businesswoman. And because that, I know what my product market fit is. I know who my partners need to be. I know where we need to go. I know how to scale. And although I had failed the first company, I didn't fail in developing my leadership skills. And I didn't fail in my founding skills. And so knowing those two things allowed me to be able to have the confidence to say, I know I'm standing up against all these SaaS platforms, but this is why you should pay attention to me.
And that's a really important thing to have done. That's an important line in the sand, mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, they said AI company. Mm-hmm. AI is a tool among
AI
many.
Thank you. It is a tool.
Yeah, what were you talking about earlier? You mm-hmm. were talking about the ability to address disease mm-hmm. in a way that hasn't been done before. Mm-hmm. AI helps get you there. Absolutely. But if AI is just the end game, mm-hmm. then you should be building LLMs and everything like that.
Absolutely.
But if you're actually looking to solve an outcome, sometimes the AI method might not be as good as something. Yeah.
They have to work, especially in science. They have to work hand in hand. Like computationally, we can design anything. But I also have a wet lab. My wet lab is in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? And so if we can design it, now can we prove this thing out in the wet lab? Can we actually put our hands on these molecules? And it turns out, yeah, we can. We were able to do our first pilot with University of Michigan. And so being able to say, we're just going to see if we can design the molecule, which is for hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer. Mm-hmm. We're going to see if we can design it. And then what we're going to do is partner with them. It won't be our IP. Those things cost. But how we got off the ground was saying, let's just see if we can do it. And mm-hmm. we were able to, and we were able to get that data back that showed people, this is actually a thing. You can design it. You can use AI as a tool, as a leverage for developing new medicines.
So what are working with these methods, and honestly, you're the first interviewer that I've talked about. Everybody's of course talking about AI, but from this drug discovery perspective, this is very new to me. I'm curious about some of the things that you've run into going through this process, and relating the outputs of the wet lab to the models and things like that.
I think that is the most challenging part, right? Because what I underestimated was how fast the AI would move. Knowing it would move, but we had the first couple molecules within a couple months. So it was, the AI is moving, it was now the wet lab piece of it. And that part is, you have to think you're subjected to human error. You're subjected to just science in Excel fails. You fail, and you fail fast, and you try again. So the biggest challenge is being able to balance out this amazing technology that moves at 1 million pounds per minute, and we're able to do all this design, but then nobody will care if you can't produce that in the wet lab and then be able to commercialize what comes out of it. So I think it's a balancing act.
And there's another theme here too. Spoken with people before that, we know we're in a terrible funding environment right now, but there is kind of a frenzy towards AI solutions. But there's people on the physical and the hardware and chemical space. What advice, knowing your story and incorporating AI as a tool, is there some parallel advice for other people that are building physical things that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you can do is familiarize yourself with the moat or whatever that anchor is. And for us, that was the science, right? So I am not a scientist. I am not the technical founder. I had to really, really get education from my scientific advisory board to my chief scientific officer. I had to understand, help me understand the actual tangible product. Only then can I really get how to best use AI. So again, I think the challenge that we run into, even with other founders, even different industries, is how are you best leveraging that AI and not resting on it? Because if you rest on it, your business is not going to be there. It's not only is it a tool, I don't want to say it's a dream, but it's, even if you were to correlate to something like fashion design, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can design the baddest jacket there is out there. It can be different, it can all that. But if I can't take that design and actually manifest it and bring it to fruition and make it look the way it looks on the computer, I still failed. So you have to be able to know how to do both. And it starts with what you can put your hands on. Then you go to AI as the tool.
So I have to be able to make it real.
Make it real, not a dream. I say it all the time to my team. It's not a dream world. Give me real world, give me dream world. Dream world is what I can cure every disease? Sure. What's the real world?
And I would love to hear, too, I'm hearing a lot about people that are looking for technical founders, and that's hard to come by these days, for like technical co-founders. Could you talk to me about being in a non-technical position, but working in an extremely technical space?
Absolutely. My entire team is tech, right? Technical. I mean, they are PhD guys, they are MIT, they are Harvard, they are next level geniuses, I call them, right? But the thing about geniuses is they still need a good partner. And what I love about my team that I wish I saw more in companies is be appreciative of the non-technical brain, because I ask the questions that they don't even think to ask because they're so technically bogged down. And then the other side of it is difficult to come by good technical co-founders. You want to make sure I call it dating. I dated one of my coworkers for almost a year of going through different experiences where he was working with us as a consultant before I said, I think you should be co-founders of this company because you have the vision that matches with my vision. And so again, I mean, I probably said a lot about balance a million times, but it's saying I contribute this where he's worried about how do we design, how do we prove it out in the wet lab, how do we do this? I'm like, who's gonna buy it? Somebody got to buy it. I need the market. Like, we can have the best science in the world, but if nobody's going to commercialize it for us and nobody's going to develop it, we still have nothing. And I think that's the strength and that's the power of a non-technical founder. I don't have a chance to get bogged down by the dream world. I tell the scientists that you guys love your babies. You do, but I don't love your baby. I need to find the one that I can take. And I think that's, it's a weird kind of juxtaposition to be in.
Well, I guess from a technical perspective, a lot of what can happen is you're working on an extremely difficult problem, and you finally you've gone through iteration, you've tried every experiment possible, and then you get a dopamine rush when it finally says success. Yes. But that's just one part that's one component. That's one tiny component.
We had I'll give you a real-time example, right? We were so excited. We started getting some data back, and the data was so strong, and we were just thrilled. And then we went to reiterate, and it didn't hit. And I was like, well, from a financial standpoint, there goes 6 weeks because it failed. And there's nothing you can do about that, so you have to manage that side of it. From a motivation standpoint, from a team morale standpoint, you have to build the team back up because especially with your technical people, they take it to heart. So I had my team apologizing they failed me. No, this is science. We're gonna get it wrong. It's my job to make sure I'm properly managing the losses so that we're there for the wins and I'm able to take a stack. So the next data set came back great. It's just a matter of being able to say and identify what does each person I think need, and I think the technical, not just founders, but the technical contributors to the team, they need things differently than those of us who are non-technical. They need their reasons to celebrate, and they also need to know that failing is okay. Not only is it okay, it's expected, and I celebrate your failures because it just told us another way not to do it.
Yeah, straight up. I guess a lot of people aren't used to failing, but honestly, if you're doing a bunch of experiments, you're gonna find
You're
that.
gonna fail.
And
Matter of fact, I'm concerned if you don't.
If you have a 100% success rate, you must have been doing 100%.
I'm a little bit concerned if everything goes right. Something's wrong. Some controls are not in place. We didn't care about certain variables. So I think it's also getting your team to celebrate the losses as well as the wins.
Yeah, and that requires a big psychological safety component.
It does, and that's where you can get into the value of a non-technical founder, because a lot of times, and not to stereotype, but a lot of times your more technical people, they're not thinking about the ethos of it. They're not thinking about the emotionally, the EQ of it all. But they need that too, because they're so hard on themselves. They need to know it's okay. We didn't get it. And guess what? Sometimes that's the answer. Okay, now we find a different answer. Maybe that target wasn't there. We've switched targets. Why? It didn't come back the way we wanted to. We just knew we were going to hit the, breast cancer. When we were starting out, we knew that's what we were targeting. It's on our list, but that's not the priority today.
So, leading a company that's using AI in drug discovery, that's uncharted waters in terms of how regulations and things like that fit in. Can you talk about the path to market for one of these approaches?
Sure. So that's why partnerships are so important, right? So I'm on the early stage of research side. I don't do the development side, which is you're more FDA regulated and that sort of thing. And so with just the research side, my whole game, what we prepare for is that one package that's going to go to you as the developer. So one, identifying and then knowing why you should be a good partner for me that can actually develop it, and then go through all the FDA trials that go along with it, go through all of the different clinical trials and all of the red tape. That is its own kind of game. And so the way that CircNova has a place in that is to make sure we have thought about all of those hurdles. So by the time you've got as my development partner, that part hopefully is a lot more seamless than it used to be.
And another question I have is just like, I'm gonna just say it straight up, like, I was at this conference. I saw this panel, venture capital, all white, all men, and
all the time.
I didn't have the heart to ask at the time, like, because they were talking about how founders navigate the system. But I wanted to ask about the experience for Black women, and I just felt like they'd think that I was putting them on the spot or something like that. And I just want to hear about, like, if you're willing to share your experience. Okay, please.
Absolutely. So
lead me the pathway.
It's funny because I embrace it so much now. I go in a room and I know nobody thinks I'm running the kind of company I am. And so I use it. I use it to see how are you going to respond to me before you figure out who I am and what I'm doing. I use it to shock people sometimes. I was at a conference recently, 437 attendees, 3 Black women, and the other 2 Black women were attorneys for companies. I was the only CEO and founder in a room that did not look like us. And so I have had things said to me that you wouldn't even imagine my face. Oh yeah, I've had your very, very staunch conservative old, white guy say, good luck, you'll never be able to pull it off. Like, oh, you're running what? You're not even a scientist. Like, how dare you? Like, I have had all kinds of things said to me, but that's not where my focus is. So I always say this as a Black woman. For every person who does not want to give you a chance because you're a woman or you're Black or whatever it is, I guarantee you there's 5 more who will and won't care, because some of those same people in that room, when I tell them technology, don't care at all that I'm a Black woman. They're like, wait, what are you doing? Hang on. And that's how you overcome those barriers. So I love talking to women of color. Matter of fact, I just about 2 weeks ago spoke to Harvard undergraduate women in tech. We were talking about this sort of thing. You have to focus on, if we focus on the stats that say only 1% of VC funding goes to women, or half of that goes to Black women, 0.5% goes to Black women, it's a bad stat. But I don't focus on the 99%. I focus on the 1%. So who was in that 1%? Because that means that's probably like 25, right? How many Black women is that in this country? And the chances are you can get to 1 of those 25, and they're going to tell you how they got it. That's how we change those statistics, not by focusing on what we didn't get, but the people who were able to overcome those barriers.
That's hope, power.
Hope,
okay. That's what, I think that just provides a good pathway and roadmap to look, especially when it feels so othering. That there's this constant rejection, and I forgot the name of the fund that came under attack, but
I don't know the fund, but I do know, and it's all about. I love God very much. I'll talk about it all the time, which is not always popular in science, but it is the reason why I don't care about rejection. Rejection is redirection. So if somebody tells me no, or if they don't want to work with me because of who I am or what I look like, I'm so confident in who I am. That's your loss.
Yeah.
That's on you. I know what I have in terms of the company. I know what I've got in terms of technology. I know what I've got in terms of team and leadership. So if you're looking at me and you've decided you don't like the way I look and thus I shouldn't be running this company, I don't want to be with you anyway.
Exactly. You just did me a favor.
You just did me a favor. No way do I want to work with you. I could go on and on about that thing, but I do believe you don't have to believe in what I believe, but you better believe in something bigger than yourself if you're trying to do something that's going to change the world. Because it can't be about you, and it can't be about money, and it can't be about that. You have to know what you're purposed for, and that any rejection falls outside of that purpose. So now it's time to redirect yourself and just, you'll find your people, find your tribe. They'll find you too.
So that takes me to, like, I'm just thinking about the grieving process after that startup loss, and then getting back into it after so quickly. What is that purpose that kept you, like, the thing that you looked at beyond?
Well, first, let me tell you about the grieving process, because
Yes.
I think this is important. People don't
Please.
like to talk about this kind of stuff. I spent 2 weeks not adulting. I told my husband and kids, I'm drinking wine and I'm watching reality TV because I just failed. I just spent 2 years of my life. I just put our home in danger. I mean, all kinds of things financially, right, over this company that didn't make it. Take the time to grieve, because I took those couple weeks. When I tell you I hit the ground running when I started CircNova. But I often think if I hadn't taken that time to grieve, to not do anything, I mean, whatever your vice is, at that time mine was reality TV just because it's so ridiculous to me. I can't think of anything else. But what it really did was gave my mind like a mental reset. I was sad as I needed to be sad. I, talked to myself about, look at what you gave up to do this. And then by the end of those 2 weeks that I was like really doing the hard grieving, I was perfectly in peace and accepting of, okay, my purpose was not aligned with that. That wasn't it. So I accepted. I'm no longer grieving, because really what it is a gateway to whatever I'm supposed to do. And CircNova came like a couple weeks later, not even.
And what's the fuel behind, like,
the purpose?
Okay.
So when I first got into life sciences, I came over from the automotive industry, and I worked for, I fell into biotech by accident. I worked for one of the most successful female founders at that time in the state of Michigan. And I saw something that I had never seen before. I was totally corporate. I didn't understand startup at all. I watched her raise money. I saw her life. I heard her journey, how she really made herself. And she was one of the first people I thought, well, if she could do it, I could do that. And then I thought, and she's a woman of color, but she wasn't a black woman. And then I thought, but if I could do that, and there are other young black women out there who could see me, they can think they can do it. Because sometimes all we have to do is see. And so part of my purpose in life, bigger than CircNova, is don't ever be defined by whatever your current circumstance are, who you are, what are you doing at that moment, because you're exactly who you're supposed to be. I was a teen mom. I was a single mom. I have been through hell and back and there again. And if I'd listened to people, there's no way I'd been able to accomplish what I've accomplished so far. So I think being aligned very much with you, with what your purpose is, will guide everything you need to for your business, because it's so much bigger than me. It's about somebody seeing me and then saying, I can do it too, because I can only treat with so many diseases. So I need I better have a whole lot more people watching me who's doing this too.
There is a label and an expectation that all of those different circumstances have, and we can't let that stuff define who we are.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I tell people I've got a 24-year-old son, they're like, do the math. Sure was a single mom, and I'm very proud of it, because I didn't let that experience define me. It actually, how I lead my team today is how I mother. The two are so related. So again, I think you have to look at everything in your life and how each of them serves. Me being an early mom made me a hell of a leader, because I knew how to compartmentalize. I knew how to balance. I knew how to have multiple things going on at once and make sure that all of them are pushing the needle. I know how to be responsible for someone other than myself. At the time, it didn't feel like that at 17, but certainly today it does.
Well, I think we've gone through some really powerful conversation, and honestly, the grieving process, nobody's talking about that.
Nobody wants to talk. It's not cute. It's not a part of the sexy founder journey, but it's important.
Sexy founder journey is so boring.
Isn't it?
It's played.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's talk.
Gotta have some color in that thing.
Yeah. One thing that we want to do is, like, we want to look into, like, the media, music, movies, whatever has been hyping you up lately? What past month, past couple of months? What's been on your playlist or on your watch list? What's hyping you up?
Man, all right. Who's on my? So I have a playlist that's called the soundtrack of my life, and I always add to it. And what I've been listening to a lot lately has been, it's been a lot of Jay-Z in there. I don't even know who sings this song. I should know it, but it's Where I Am Today. I'm trying to do a million things all at once. So I got the catchphrase in my head. I'm out here trying to function. I'm out here trying to function. I'm trying to function, doing a million things at once. So usually my playlist is some form of rap to a little bit of like melancholy-ish type, one notice Adele-ish type music, down to gospel in the morning if I need to kind of get my juices going. But rap is my thing. That's like coming here today, I'm listening to Eminem.
Yes.
I'm listening.
We're in Detroit.
Run Rabbit Run. Really, like we in Detroit. Like I'm literally listening to Run Rabbit. Like getting my hype up for the panel because it's Detroit and I'm feeling the flavor and I feel motivated, inspired by people who have similar journeys to me. So yeah, my music is usually like that. On my watch list, I just finished Severance. So I don't get to watch TV that much. Isn't it so good?
I need to introduce you to my partner.
Yes.
Obsessed. We were, the house.
Did you see it too?
Oh, all of
my
it.
gosh.
We speed ran that show.
I had to go back and watch, because it's so, like, detailed. I had to go back in and watch it. But, like, what am I watching right now? Severance was definitely, like, number one. I was just trying to convince my sister to watch it.
Tell her to watch this podcast. And then
I'm going to tell her.
tell her to watch this, then
yes.
Severance.
Look.
Okay, so just saw the video. What do you think, Melissa? What were some of your gut reactions watching that interview?
I almost got lost in the first couple minutes, Chris, because how bold that she is around her failures. And it's so interesting because I see that theme consistently with my founders that I get to work with all the time. They are so hard on themselves around this moment. I'll give you a great example, maybe a little bit of a parallel. Like this expectation of success that if your startup fails that you have failed. And I just so don't believe that because, when I talk to second-time founders, all the mistakes that they made in that first company, they are like learning from that and evolving the second company. And so it's just a theme that really sits with me consistently. And I just think there's so much value for the community in understanding points of failures from others so you don't make that same mistake.
That is such a powerful way to look at it too. And let's expand that from not just founding a company, but putting your life and putting your whole soul into the work that you were trying to do. I was part of a layoff that happened recently at my previous company. And, that was a giant emotional blow because of just how serious. And I'm speaking to my fam. I'm speaking to my people that were also a part of that. The missions, the things that you're serving, the things that that you find important, that's not defined by C Corp, S Corp, LLC. It comes from inside. And it didn't go away just because you might have been cut off from that employment relationship. That's a huge response to that. Like, thank you for sharing that part of it.
Chris, and I am so glad that even for you, like you did not internalize that layoff as a knock on who you are, right? Just because you may not be suited or the company may not be in the position to retain you for your employment does not shape how valuable you are as a human and to the world.
Yes, folks, look beyond that and take that grieving process seriously. And I'd like to say that another part to me was that Crystal is looking out into the world. We talked about how difficult the funding environment is for everybody. And we talked about how the balance of power is not in her favor as a Black woman. And she said, look, I can focus on like the 99.5% that aren't getting funded, but I want to find out the differences and take inspiration from those that do, and then be the inspiration for the next round. So just the fact that she has a vision that goes deeper than, again, those corporate guidelines and boundaries and everything like that. And she's using that to support her and that to fuel her, not the validation from the company itself. She's saying things like, if she can do it, I can do it. Like, it's simple affirmations like that I think keep us going.
I tell a lot of people that I was like raised in the payer environment, right? You know, like I was kind of brought up in that world, 20 years in this space, like you kind of start to identify as a payer, right? And you're like, people ask, like, what do you do? Who are you? You're like, oh, I work for this and I work for that. And I just think it's so interesting when you don't have that identity anymore, like you lose that identity a slight bit. You and I have talked about this before. And you have to shape that new identity. And then you have to sell that new identity to someone else. I mean, that is the most interesting dynamic of fundraising and of being a founder, is that each day, remember our quote from last episode, you are out there, you are in the dirt, you are showing up, for the majority, like, to get rejected, right? I talked to one founder. Oh, how many VCs did you talk to before you finally raised? Oh, only 175. Like, can you imagine getting rejected 175 times and then walking back into that next pitch with that same level of energy and enthusiasm, like for 176, right? And that 176 might be that one round of funding. And I do think there is a bias because, people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? And if you look at the people sitting around that investment table, not many of them look like me. And I imagine even less of them look like Crystal. Not even I have to imagine, data points show even less of them look like Crystal. And what I love about my new community of innovators, I think, is that they help each other in such an incredible way. Like, they share founding lists and they talk about, or investing lists. They talk about, like, websites that are helpful for them. And so I think we should do that too, Chris. I think we should share things we find helpful.
Melissa, I'm going to put the show notes together. Please drop some of the communities and websites that you most respect. Let's get that out there.
Yeah, I love that. And, encourage others to, in the comments, share lists that they find helpful. And so many founders I know, even like Lorna, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, that CEO of Groker, like, she, with no, reason to do that, just helped, my founder, Mika, just gave her like this most amazing advice, and there was like no need for her to do that, but it was amazing. And I see that happening all the time.
Oh, and we left you on a mystery. For those that didn't catch that first episode, I'm going to give a key part of that quote that Melissa was referring to. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of cobblestones in her hair. So that's just a reminder that Hope isn't just putting on the blinders and being blindly optimistic. You heard us talk about it in that interview, but just wanted to remind y'all of what that quote was. Now, y'all heard it from Crystal, severance. Let's talk about, let's get into pop culture. We referenced Handmaid's Tale a little bit earlier, but Melissa, I wonder what's been on your media mind in the past
Chris,
week.
Are you asking what am I watching? Okay.
Watching or what we're listening to on the plane, whatever.
Yeah, well, my media tastes are divergent. So let's start at probably more of the start at more of the fun level. So a show that I've consistently watched for years is the show called Vanderpump Rules. And the Vanderpump people grow up and they move to the Valley. And now they've become this community of partners who, basically get married, get divorced, have a lot of arguments, And in this season, we learned that one of our protagonists, Jax, actually has been doing cocaine for years, right? And he goes on this journey of understanding that he has a mental illness, and it's actually more ahead in the news than you see on the show. And so there's 2 points that I'm finding really, really interesting. One, now that this is out, how many people that might, watch it were like, oh, how did we not see that, right? And I'm sure we all have those moments where we find out someone might have a condition or a disorder that wasn't so public. And when it becomes public, you're like, oh, I guess I saw those moments a little bit. And the hope for me is that I'm so excited that he's putting those conditions out there, and the stigma of that. I mean, cocaine, it's pretty serious, and the fact that he was able to hide it for so many seasons across 2 different shows, how did the producers not see this is my first question. And second, what an interesting friend group that they all probably knew this, and yet they protected him from the media, but didn't help him enough to, get him the help that he needed. So I'm watching the stigma reduce and someone struggle with finding out that they have a mental illness and dealing with a substance use disorder.
Melissa, that really strikes a note, especially just thinking about how there might have been a cocktail of stigma, repercussions, and all kinds of other things that kept him and keeps many others from coming forward with things that they could actually get lots of help with. And it reminds me of someone. I don't know if she connected to me to you or vice versa, but we both know Melissa Forrest Shackelford. Yes. And that has been her we got to bring her. Did we already talk about bringing her on the show? Because
yes.
her
we're going to wait until she's got, a lot to share with us, and then we're going to bring her on. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, she's one of the biggest advocates for, especially because she works in that marketing context, helping organizations take the stigma out of the language that they're developing for moments of care. So she did. She actually, I think she co-presented with another friend of mine, Lila Wagoner, at a conference a couple of weeks ago about it. But thank you for bringing that one up.
Yeah, I love the work that Melissa's doing in this space. She's actually helping another company that I'm very close with, make their entree into the world. And their whole mission is actually to help those with substance use disorder with career skilling, post-substance use disorder. And Melissa's just doing a beautiful job of making great connections, helping, more of a technical oriented founder, learn the language of payers, of treatment centers, and how to do that in a really interesting marketing packaging that is exciting or compelling to someone in the space. So, it's just interesting, this theme of having to present ourselves differently as we transform, that I think we should unpack a little bit more, because oftentimes, though you want to remain your authentic self, you still have to tailor your message to that audience so that they can receive it. And I just think Melissa's an expert in helping others do that.
Big appreciation, and thank you for highlighting that work. I'll throw my hat in the ring too, with we call it our pop culture section, but maybe Daniel Johnston. He's a musician that I love. Maybe he's a little bit less, let's call it unpopular culture, not quite as famous a big name, but I think it's one that should be known. He is a talent. Well, he was a talented multi-instrumentalist, but early on in his life, he had always been struggling with bipolar disorder and a host of other things. I'm not sure about these diagnoses and everything like that. But the thing about his music, he's what you call an outsider musician. So he's kind of playing by his own rules. It has kind of a folky sound. He'll play piano and guitar, but his singing is not like you're not listening to it for somebody with vocal training and chops, a classically trained musician. You get just a very raw feel of how he approaches his life and the things that have impacted him, depression and love, and just the things that he's going through. And it just got, when I was thinking about that grief journey that Crystal shared, it just got me thinking about that type of music. While it can be extremely dark and mellow and low, it's still the type of thing that, while you're in that lower energy state, while you're in that dysregulation, it is it's a type of music that soothes the soul and lives with you. And again, that outsider music, he's not following anybody's rules or anything like that. He's just singing directly to the soul and does such a good job at it. So Daniel Johnston, have you ever are you ever in the movies and you hear that song? Well, there's these two people like sitting next to each other in the movie pews and on one of those like pre-movie rolls, and there's a song that says, "True love will find you in the end." Does that strike a bell?
No, but you're an excellent singer.
Well, maybe I picked up on it because they were actually covering a Daniel Johnston song in that. So like as underground as he was as this kind of outsider musician, it was awesome to see that, oh wow, so somebody has licensed his music and they're putting it in this kind of mainstream context. But yeah. Check out Daniel Johnston. The album Hi, How Are You would be a good place to get started.
Music is just magical. My new friend Jean Bowen over at Road Recovery is someone that I ran into when I was doing some work with Ascend Pathways, the group I was just talking about before. And what I love about Road Recovery is that the music space is a space that, probably like healthcare, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of highs, and there's a lot of lows. And so Road Recovery is a wonderful organization that's been, advancing the mental health needs of the music community for a long time. And so when I get on with Gene, it's kind of like this. He's like, yeah, I was doing this with, I was hanging out with Metallica, so-and-so from Metallica this weekend, and and they were doing this, and just an incredible organization, and just he gives me hope. That organization gives me hope. Music gives me hope. So please keep sharing some of these excellent tunes, and I hope you'll keep singing for us too, Chris.
Okay. Well, we don't even have a theme song yet, so Melissa, we gotta work on that. So
yeah. We can't use like the facts of life. That's one of my favorite. No.